Hello folks and welcome to Truck King. It is true that so many of the trucks we see today out on the roads and here on this YouTube channel are $100,000 plus massive luxury trucks. But you know what? Rest assured, there still are some basic model trucks out there on the market, and we have one today. Meet the 2025 Ford Maverick XL Hybrid. This is the smallest and most inexpensive truck that Ford builds, and we're going to review it. So in this video, we'll go for a drive. We'll talk fuel economy and price, but maybe most importantly, we're going to load up that bed with over 1,000 pounds of payload to see how it hauls. So make sure you stay tuned. Let's start by looking at the powertrain. So this is a 2.5-liter 4-cylinder engine mated to a battery pack and an electric motor. Total system output here is 191 horsepower. But I really appreciate that here in the base truck, we still get this hybrid as standard equipment because it's going to save you at the fuel pump. This thing is rated for 42 miles per gallon in the city, which is pretty impressive. And yeah, we'll talk fuel economy in a little bit. Now, one other thing you have to realize though is this truck is also front wheel drive. Now for 2025, you can now get all-wheel drive with your hybrid. You couldn't do that before, but this truck we're testing today doesn't have all-wheel drive, so just front-wheel drive here, and I'm curious to see how that performs, especially once we load up that bed. Now, talking about styling, yeah, this is the most basic Maverick you can get, and I think it shows. You're just getting plain steel wheels. However, a little bit of style goes on with this cool hubcap right there in the middle. I don't think it looks bad. Now, our truck today is finished in white. Of course, there's a bunch of other colors available, but when it's in white, this thing looks like a total typical base model work truck. So why don't you just drop in the comments right now and let me know what you think about the styling here on this Maverick. I have to jump in here and thank the sponsor of this video, Renogy, and show you a pretty cool product they sent over for testing. This is the super slim solid state battery pack. It has 1.3 kilowatt hours of energy stored in here, and I just like how small it is. The whole idea here is you can install this battery underneath the seat in your vehicle. You could install it to the back wall, behind the seats, even to a bed wall inside your truck. And when I looked at it, I figured, you know what? This is perfect for a little mobile power station. So I used some 4x4s and 2x4s and built this. And on the other side, I have the Renogy 3000 watt inverter. So yes, I actually have 3000 watts of power, and it's nice that it can come with you. Now you could install this in your vehicle or do like I did. And another great use here would be camping, overlanding to power all your stuff. Now when it comes to us, we're out here shooting videos all day and we have a shop back here, but it doesn't have power. So right now I'm gonna plug in drone batteries because we've been flying the drone today. Heck, you know what? My phone needs to get plugged in, and there is a USB-A port directly on this inverter, so we'll charge up the phone. So yeah, when it comes to video shoots, it's handy to have power. And then when it comes to doing work, we always got some odd job to do back here. Today, that job is drilling a hole in this big barrel because we want to turn it into a burn barrel. So I'm going to bust out this old school big drill, and you're about to see one of the things I really like is the Renogy app, because you can live monitor exactly how much power the inverter is using and how much power is still in your battery, so you always know exactly what's going on. Heck, it even shows you the temperature of the inverter and the battery, and yeah, 3000 watts is plenty to do stuff like this. So if you're interested in mobile power for your shop, for your truck, for your RV or motorhome, this is an excellent solution. If you want more information, go below and hit the link in the description. Let's take a look at the business end on this Maverick now, starting with the tailgate here on this base model. Not damped, and we don't even have a spray and bed liner here. Now, of course, you can get one if you want it, but yeah, I kind of like that on our base model. They didn't put it in here to help you save a couple of bucks. It's just not that often that we even see that anymore. Now, another feature you're gonna notice right away, we do have this cool bed extender which you can flip out like so. And then, yeah, it just gives you more functional space in your bed. And if you do have something back here, you don't have to worry about it coming out the back. So I do appreciate that. And that is important because it is a small bed. This is a 4.5-foot long bed. Between those wheel wells, you're getting just over 42 inches of space. So it is not massive. So anything that's going to extend it is appreciated. Now, one funny thing, right on this bed extender, it says that the tailgate can only support a maximum of 200 pounds when it's opened. And I find that interesting because most brands actually won't tell you what you're allowed to put on the tailgate in terms of weight. I've asked the questions many times before of engineers and PR people, and they always just say, the tailgates are good enough to support whatever you need, but they won't put a number on it, which always frustrates me. And of course, in this case, they say 200 pounds. I mean, we know that's underrated. Look, I'm overloading the tailgate right now as we speak, and it's fine. Actually, we even loaded an ATV into the back of a Ford Maverick, and it was a tight fit, but it worked. So of course, when you're loading something like that, you're putting a lot more weight on the tailgate. Now, sure, it's temporary, but still, a lot more weight can go on this tailgate than just 200 pounds. Now, besides the bed extender, I'll show you the other features. In this bed, we do get hard tie downs here at the back corner, just one lower tie down right there. There's a hard tie down up here at the front. And then this is what Ford calls its flex bed. They've designed a lot of things in this bed to sort of allow you to set up different storage systems and to install different accessories. So you'll see the cutouts up here right in the steel. This is gonna fit lumber in here and create some dividers or a little shelf system. You're also gonna see these pre-drilled holes up here. Same idea, Ford gives you these pre-drilled, pre-threaded holes. So if you wanna build something in here, you can use those to attach to, which is kind of cool. And then I'll flip this back out of the way. Actually, it's right in the way again, so I'll do this right here. You can see Ford routes 12-volt power right back here to behind these caps. So if you want to hook something up back here that needs power, it's right there. And then finally over here, you can see this QR code. Well, those are actually all over the truck. And if you scan that, it's going to bring you to a website that shows you all of the different things that you can build for the bed of your Ford Maverick. So yes, it's a small bed. There's no getting around that. But Ford has given it tons of smart features. So depending on what you're doing with it, this bed can still be absolutely functional day to day. Now let's talk towing and payload. On this truck, we don't have the 4K towing package, so we're good for 2,000 pounds off the hitch receiver. And now let me check the payload. On our truck here today, 1,478 pounds, which is a good number for a small truck, and that's a number we're about to put to the test. Now I do want to look at the back seat of this Maverick, so we'll start by showing you some of the features. So this seat bottom folds up and allows you to get to all this storage. Now there's your hybrid battery pack, so you can also get in there to actually work on it. But this thing is quite deep, and actually like over here on the sides, it goes all the way underneath the plastic over here right on the door sill. So yeah, they're using every inch of space. Now you're also gonna see these little cutouts here, and there's actually another one right over here. They're all the same because Ford's idea is that if you own a 3D printer, you can 3D print things that will slot down in there. So up this one, you can 3D print a cup holder, let's say, or a little bin to hold stuff. Down here, I'm sure you could 3D print different baskets or walls for dividers. So yeah, that's again this whole idea of the truck being DIY, that you can take it home and 3D print stuff that's going to work for it. So I do like the space you get under. Now I'll also show you this. This is not a 60/40 fold. The whole seat back goes together. I don't love that, but it is what it is. There are 3 top tethers back here for child seats and a little toolkit down there. Not really any storage space back here though. And then also you're getting lower latch on the driver and passenger side. Now finally, I'll go ahead and climb in. This is 36.9 inches of second row legroom, and it's a lot. I stand at 6'2", and I can legitimately sit in this back seat comfortably. And it's something I've said about the Maverick a ton of times. I gotta say it again. Small truck, big interior. It doesn't feel tight in here. It doesn't feel cramped. And the fact that I can sit in the back of Ford's smallest truck and say it doesn't feel cramped, yeah, that's a big deal. So I do appreciate just how much space we have. Headroom is fine. For amenities on this base truck, all I'm getting is 2 USB-C ports. So yeah, not a lot of features back here, but hey, it's a base truck, so it's even nice to just get those USB ports. So yeah, when it comes to the backseat space, it's really good on the Maverick. Let's take a look underneath this Maverick now. So I like to start with the tow hooks, and on this truck, there are none. Nothing up here in the fascia or up in the bumper. It's always nice to see at least one tow point on the front of a pickup truck. And of course, we always think about this in the off-road world as, oh, you need to get pulled out or pull someone else out. But sometimes it's as simple as, oh, I need to move a branch off the trail or move something around my yard, and I want an easy place to hook up the front end of the truck so I don't always have to hook to the back. So yes, disappointing that there is no front tow hook whatsoever. There's a couple spots down here underneath. Now, I don't think this is meant for towing. You probably could hook something in there if you had to, but still, disappointing you have no tow hook. Now, what I do like to see is it's fully sealed up. And again, not from an off-road perspective, this truck is all about fuel economy. And that's why you're getting so much of this kind of plasticky, fibrous material, because this is gonna seal up this bottom end and help you with your aerodynamics. So yes, no gap right there is nice. Nice to see it coming back. And on this truck, it's just funny because usually the vehicles we see are four-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. It's very rare we have something front-wheel drive up here. So the whole back end just feels kind of empty because of course there's no drive shafts going back that way whatsoever. Now, a couple other things I noticed. Right over here is your hybrid battery pack, and it doesn't get a skid plate. Usually battery packs will actually get a full skid plate on their own. This one gets this bar right here, and this bar, I'm assuming, must just be if you did come down on the battery, at least you're gonna have something to hold up the weight of the truck. So it gets a little bit of protection. I would have preferred to see a solid skid plate rather than this soft material, but still nice to see you're getting something. And then at the back, two other things of interest. You are getting a full-size spare tire back there. Even though you got the small bed, that still fits. And then I like to see that the exhaust on this truck is actually cut off above the bumper, so it is totally hidden from sight. And I feel like that's a bit of a hybrid thing too. On this sort of a truck, yeah, you don't want to be reminded that you got an exhaust back there. So Ford tucks it up right out of the way and hides it. Okay, now it's time to go to work. So we will back up to our rubber mats we use for payload testing, and that gives me a chance to show you the cameras. So that's your main backup camera there. Then you also get a wider view out of your backup camera, which is cool. And then if you hit the plus, that's gonna zoom in on your hitch view, and you can see you do get that predictive guideline back there. And then over on the right, that's your parking sensors that are also showing up next to your camera. So yeah, you know, you don't expect much from a base truck, but this is plenty of camera views to help you do stuff like this, back into a trailer or something you gotta load up, and then we can get to work. And now everybody, we're loaded up and we're out here on the road. So we just loaded 12 97-pound rubber mats into the bed of this Maverick. That is 1,164 pounds of payload in the bed. And then plus me and cameraman Liam next to me, we're definitely overloading this thing. We're probably around 1,600 pounds total. And I've been doing my part lately because I have lost some weight. But yeah, we're still overloaded here in the Maverick. But you know what? I feel like going over by 100, 200 pounds is something that just about everybody does, and most manufacturers honestly expect you to do. So even though we're a little bit over, I still think it's a reasonable amount of weight for this truck. And then the most important thing is, well, how does it drive? And the answer is pretty good. You definitely feel the weight back there. I can feel that the rear end of this truck is squatting and my nose is a little bit tall. The other thing I can feel is under hard acceleration, there is torque steer here. Torque steer is in a front wheel drive vehicle. When you're accelerating, the wheel will kind of jerk out of your hands and have a tendency to steer the vehicle to the left or to the right. So the torque steer gets a little bit worse once you have weight in the bed. And this is one of the biggest downsides to a front wheel drive setup that is meant to work. Because with front wheel drive, yeah, the only power we're getting is going to those front wheels. And when you load up the back end of the vehicle, it inevitably makes the front end lighter, and that results in more torque steer, and even if I put my foot right to the floor, I've been able to spin the tires a little bit, which was not happening before. Now, when it comes to my steering sort of overall though, it's really not bad. When I'm going in a straight line just down the road, I don't feel like I'm correcting that much. The front end feels a little more floaty than it does when it's empty. So all of this is to say, yeah, we have loaded this thing up just beyond its payload rating, so it feels like I'd expect. It feels like it's working, but it doesn't feel dangerous. There is a level you can get to where, yeah, the truck starts to feel dangerous. It feels like it doesn't want to turn around a corner. It feels like it's wandering all over the road, and none of that is happening here. So it's definitely stressed out. I feel the weight, but it is handling it exactly like I would expect this truck to. Now, another positive is the fuel economy. Now, we haven't been driving too long with the rubber back there, about 25-ish kilometers, and we are currently getting 6.4 liters per 100 kilometers, which is slightly worse than what I was getting empty, and that's definitely going to be another positive of this truck. And we have found this with Payload testing throughout the years. Payload doesn't add very much to your fuel economy. Now, it does depend what the payload is. If it's something big and tall and it's adding aerodynamic drag, then it's going to make your fuel economy worse. But with something like these rubber mats where they're basically not affecting the aerodynamics at all, yeah, they're adding a tiny bit to the fuel economy, and that's just another positive of this hybrid in general. So overall, when it is fully loaded or even slightly overloaded, I'd say the Maverick XL is doing a pretty dang good job. Now, we're gonna go unload this rubber, we're gonna measure the squat, and then we're gonna go on a long drive. I'll talk to you more about the interior and the features and how it drives unloaded, and then we'll look at the fuel economy empty over a long drive as well. Now we're back in from the payload test, and I want to measure and see how much this truck was squatting. So we go to the center of our wheel here. That's basically 31.5 inches. Now we'll unload and then compare. Folks, now we're unloaded. So we will measure. And that's just a hair over 34 inches, which means that that is about 2.5 inches of squat, a little bit more. Now, through all of our testing over the years, we find that most half-ton and mid-size trucks squat about 2 inches per 1,000 pounds. So the fact that this is just over 2.5, yeah, it's a little worse than on those trucks, but that's because, of course, there's no leaf springs in the back. There's not even a solid axle back here. So I think that can be expected. And that squat explains what I was feeling from behind the wheel. And now, folks, we're back out here on the road. The weight is off the back, so we're unloaded now. And we have just under 100 kilometers, should be about 90 kilometers to do right now. So I just reset the trip, so we're able to do another fuel economy test and see what this thing gets unloaded. And I think it's a good chance, first of all, to talk about it unloaded. So the stuff I mentioned with the weight in the back in terms of the torque steer, the floaty front end, all of that is entirely gone. When this thing is unloaded, it's simple to drive. It cruises down the road nice and straight. It's quiet. It's fairly comfortable in here. And these are things that for a base model, you don't always expect either, but they're absolutely here. As a daily driver, this is probably the best pickup truck on sale just because it's the size and the weight, and again, just the way it drives. Most trucks have a tendency to be a little stiff in the back end. You get that sort of weight imbalance because you have a heavy engine up front and no weight over the rear. This doesn't feel like that. It feels more like a car or like a crossover, and I think that's a good thing if you're just commuting back and forth to work Monday to Friday. Now, I should also mention this interior, and this is another thing we've seen across the world of trucks. the base models are getting more and more content. Now we're gonna get to the price, because the downside of this is that our base prices have also climbed. But if you just look at this truck, I call it a base truck, we still have an over 13-inch touchscreen here in the center stack. I still have a fully digital gauge cluster up here. You're still getting a bit of a mix in materials, sort of this blue plastic set against the gray plastic. It has different kind of textures to it in different areas. And those are those little attentions to detail that we see a lot now in our expensive luxury trucks. Well, they're down here too in the base Maverick. So again, I'm really happy to see some of that stuff. And part of my opinion comes from the fact that we just got out of the Maverick Lobo. So this is the least expensive Maverick. That is the most expensive Maverick. And yet the interiors are not that different. The Lobo does get leather seats, it gets stitching, it gets some other features like wireless phone charging that I don't have here, but I would say for the most part, the interiors feel the same. And that's not really a knock on the Lobo. That is saying, yeah, the XL, even though it's the base model, they're still putting a lot of effort into this interior. So I'm happy to see that. And even though it's a base model, I just don't feel like I'm missing anything. Maybe a sunroof, there's no powered rear glass back there, so a couple little things here and there, but for the most part, don't feel like I'm missing much. Now, let's move on to pricing, because that's going to be the most important part of any vehicle, but especially a base vehicle. So this Maverick, as you see it in this video, is $38,000 Canadian. It has about $2,000 worth of options on it, so absolute base in Canada is going to be right around 36 grand. And compared to every other pickup truck on the market, that is a good deal. That is absolutely a bargain. Now, granted, you're getting a small truck, so it's not going to be as big as your mid-size Ranger or especially as a full-size F-150. But for that price point, I think it is a pretty good value. I do wish the base number started with a 2 here in Canada, like a 29,995 kind of thing. And as you can see, the US pricing, yeah, is more attractive. But even still, compared to everything else on the market, this feels like a good value. And here's the result of the fuel economy test we just pulled back in. We did 88.4 kilometers and we managed 5.8 liters per 100. Now 26.4 of those kilometers were all electric, and that is mixed driving. We actually sat in a whole bunch of traffic because there was an accident today, and then we were on secondary highways doing between 80 and 90 kilometers an hour, and then we got back on the main highway for probably half the drive where we were doing about 110 kilometers per hour. But yeah, that's a bit of a mixed number, but 5.8, incredibly impressive. And that's with zero, added driving techniques. I wasn't trying to get good fuel economy. I was just driving normally. So that's a pretty impressive number. Well, folks, we're coming to the end of this one. And I gotta tell you, I'm coming away pretty impressed with this little Maverick XL. Now sure, you can acknowledge that there's some jobs that are just gonna be too big for it, whether it's towing heavy or just hauling large things in that small bed. But outside of those two areas, I think this Maverick XL delivers. It has competitive payload, even with some of the half-ton trucks we test. The interior is spacious and comfortable, and then the fuel economy is unbelievably good. And then add on the fact that the actual starting price isn't gonna break the bank. And I think this is quite a compelling little package. Now, of course, though, I want to hear from you. So drop in the comments. Let me know what you think of the Ford Maverick in general, and especially this Ford Maverick XL Hybrid. As always, while you're down below, don't forget to hit like, hit subscribe, hit join to become a member, and then come right back here to Truck King and see what we're testing next. See ya.